What was the most unexpected thing done by someone you thought you knew? Story 1. When I was 21, my mom revealed that my dad is probably not my dad. I grew up knowing my parents loved each other and respected each other intellectually, but did not function well as a couple. They split when I was 5 due to physical abuse and alcoholic tendencies going both ways, and we're all glad they're apart. Fast forward, they haven't spoken to each other in a decade. I'm a grown adult. I visited my mother, and she sit me down to explain a secret she has kept my whole life. I might not be his plot twist. I might be his brother's daughter. Mom tells me a tale of forbidden love. She fell for his older brother hard and fast, but my grandma forbid it, as my mother wasn't good enough for her beloved eldest son. Instead, my grandmother offered up the second son, and my parents dated on and off. For 3 years, my mother saw the eldest brother in secret while he was engaged to another woman, while my father, the second son, stood guard so no one would find out. My mother explained I could belong to either of them. The most unexpected thing about this story was my dad. He loved her the whole time. He loved her so much that he protected her, knowing he was never her first choice. This made the story more tragic. I cannot fathom how tortured they all were. Dr. Mom and Dad's brother were forbidden lovers while Mom dated Dad as cover. Dad protected them both. Story 2. In college, we had 4 of us living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I shared a room with Ruben, who was a really introverted, shy nerd who didn't seem capable of socializing well or talking to women much. We had a small group of us go to this karaoke bar, and we were drinking soju and picking the usual bad songs and singing stuff. Ruben hadn't joined in and sung anything, so we pushed him a little bit to pick a song, and he chose Always by Atlantic Starr. Then it was like a moment out of a reality show, and he just totally rocked that song, singing his heart out with more passion than I've ever seen him do anything. We were all silent and in awe that he could belt out a song like that and sing perfectly. Edit fixed a spelling mistake. Story 3. I'm not saying I knew him on any sort of personal level, but I worked at a gas station in Winnipeg and was filling in at a different store for a month while they trained a new manager. My midnight guy was this middle-aged Asian man who kept to himself and meticulously cleaned the store every night. Perfect midnight employee. Manager was trained. I went back to my original store. Midnight guy eventually quits and moves to Alberta. A couple years later, I read about how he cut off some dude's head on a Greyhound bus just outside of Winnipeg. Story 4. A colleague I've been working with for years, supporting her in 2 projects and working my off to get promoted. We had a good relationship too. During our last round of evaluation, I asked for a promotion to be on the same level as her roughly, thinking she would back me up. She didn't, even saying I wasn't doing well or wasn't working independently enough. I found out it was because she wanted to make sure I'd keep working for her. That was unexpected after 4 years of really helping her out. Story 5. My sister and I haven't voluntarily spoken to each other since I left home 15 years ago. No grand falling out. We just always loathed each other, and once we didn't have to live in the same tiny house together with our discipline-obsessed parents, we had no reason to have to associate with one another anymore. We've seen each other at Christmas, at our parents' place, at a couple of family funerals, and we can be civil to each other, but she's always been pretty vile to me if we have to spend any time alone together. I tried reaching out a couple times in my 20s, but she was just kind of shitty with me, so I left it alone. And then at the weekend, she emailed me to tell me she's making some changes in her life and regrets the fact that she doesn't know me at all, and that she wants us to try and forge a real sibling relationship, independent of our upbringing and the people that we used to be. I might be getting a sister, a proper sister. Story 6. My friend got engaged. He's been very vocal in the past about not wanting to get married. And when our other friend got engaged after being with his GF for 6 months, this guy's went on a rant about how it was stupid to get engaged after such a short time. Well, come June, turns out he's engaged, has been for 6 weeks, and has only been with the girl since February. Oh, and she's his best mate's ex, and that relationship ended in Jan. The hypocrisy is staggering. Story 7. My dad robbed a Blockbuster that he worked at when I was like 10 and didn't tell any of us. One day, I called the store to talk to him to see if he could bring me home Spyro for PlayStation, and the manager asked to talk to my ma. He then proceeded to tell us that my dad robbed the store a couple of days prior and was arrested. He kept coming and leaving the house as if he was still going to work all those days. Needless to say, the divorce happened shortly after. He also flew a lady out from SF that he met online, only to send her right back as she wasn't what he expected. Wait. Story 8. Coworker of mine just stopped coming into the office. That's not that big a deal, really. But it was after he used his vacation time, so it started to track down his sick time, and then unpaid leave. The boss started getting nervous. This wasn't normal behavior. Anyways, this guy had worked quietly for 13 years, had been there a decent amount of time, but never advanced or anything, just your typical quiet worker, no crazy promotions or specialization, probably only making 60K tops from the best I can figure. Just an ordinary and average Joe. But then he just stopped coming to work, like completely stopped. No explanation, no text or call to our manager or anything. So our immediate superior gets mad. And we've all seen this play out at least once or twice before. Some people just aren't cut out for this line of work, but then the guy in question wasn't exactly a new hire, had been with the company for a long time. Phone calls, emails, they're going to fire this guy soon, and they're running out of excuses not to because he's just not responding. Manager has to go to HR, and now people start to wonder if maybe something happened. Call him on a different line along some really old emergency contact information. Still no answer. Thing becomes a mystery in the office. Nobody knows. Rumors start to spread. Maybe he's dead. Maybe there was an accident. Maybe he got poached and went to another company. They fire him. Finally, I think they did. No other option, really, because he's not in the office, and they definitely replaced him. Thing is, he's not dead. He's not sick or hurt or gone off to another company. No, this guy is a legend. See, it turns out he was chipping at the metaphoric cell block of office work. Always grinding away like that dude from Shawshank Redemption. Had been stockpiling over half his salary for years with some magic number off in the distance. And then when he reached it, the guy just retired, like dropped everything right there and then, and just left without telling anyone. I only know because somehow word got out from someone who knew a friend, who knew someone, who knew him. One of those long, convoluted grapevine rumors. Only this one held a lot more water than the rest of them. I crept around on Facebook a few weeks after they replaced him, and there he was. All his posts were public too. The latest ones are just him on a beach or traveling on a road somewhere, early 40s. Worked quietly for years without any crazy windfall or salary. But he's apparently a millionaire, or at least living like one. My aunt stole a large sum of money from me. When I turned 18, I was to get a check for 18 years of per cap with interest. 6 months before my 18th, she quit her job and started working at a small 5-location credit union. She asked me to move my accounts there to help her meet quotas, since she just started and would do joint accounts so I could get the benefits too. 10 months later, I thought she had a better job and was reaping the benefits when she started to remodel her house and spend her nights at the bar. I didn't think anything of it because she was my aunt and had a decent job. When I went to change banks because I was moving across the country, she told me she already withdrew the money and I couldn't get it. And since it was a joint account, there was nothing I could do about it. Well, not fine. The worst thing about it was that she claimed it was what my mother wanted and was in her will. Then when disproved, said she deserved it more than me. And then eventually that because she did it in a legal way, it was hers now. She convinced her boss that I was trying to ruin her life, so I couldn't even go to them for help. Eventually I got 60 of it back from settlement, but she burned all the bridges she could in the family. She would cut off any contact with people who asked what the problem was, or would threaten to if they talked about it. Since she was getting free childcare from her mom, she said she would rather pay for childcare than listen to her mom talk about me. So my grandmother had to keep quiet or she would lose her other 2 grandkids and her last living daughter along with me because I was moving across the country. Total blindside. Story 9 guy that I grew up with slit his girlfriend's throat and killed her right after we all got out of high school. Shocked us all. Creepiest thing. He was incarcerated in 88 to 89. In 2004, I went into a little convenience store. There's a great big guy in there. He knows my name and greets me enthusiastically. I don't recognize him. Of course you know how this ends. It's my former childhood friend. He had been out for about a month. And does he like to talk? I'm not kidding you. He recited my old phone number from the 80s back to me like lightning. And then my best friends and several of our other friends, never seen anything like it, then tells me he has a Corvette. And that maybe if you're a good girl, he'll let me ride in it sometime. EW, last I heard, he got arrested for trafficking. Story 10, when my mother admitted to the family that she had been molested as a child by her maternal grandfather. Everyone was understandably shocked, sympathetic, and supportive, except her mother, my grandma. She just said, "Oh, honey, I knew all about that." She knew her father was molesting her young daughter and did nothing. I knew my grandma wasn't a very nice person. I just didn't think she was evil. Story 11, I found out my roommate assaulted a friend of mine and had been stalking him. She told me they had consensual and had spent months talking about how he was ignoring her and how hurt she felt. She also made sure to tell him that I supported her so that him and I did not talk. Finally, she threatened him and his girlfriend after sending him about 40 emails one night. He texted me asking me if I could help, and I called him immediately, and we finally touched base. It was the most terrifying information to learn, because she has been manipulating me in a way which basically made me realize all of her behavior and actions that she had told me about were bullshit. I also found out she caused thousands of dollars of damage to her room, and that she had told everyone in my graduate program we were best friends. She also lied a lot about her identity and ethnicity and sexuality. And having a boyfriend, I never got specific proof the boyfriend was fake, but I'm 100 convinced he was a famous playwright. But they couldn't move in it together because the boyfriend had panic attacks every time they were in the room together. This woman is literally the craziest, scariest person I've ever met. But the assault thing was just horrific to learn. I've never felt so viscerally shocked and betrayed before, ETA not race, ethnicity. Writing about this angers me, and I got hyperbolic. Story 12 this very morning. My dad, who doesn't leave the house much, and I don't hardly see him, randomly came by my house to bring me a Boston cream pie, which I have been craving. This is one of the most awesome surprises ever. I am so happy right now. Story 13 freshman year, my friend asked me, have you ever thought about shooting the school up? I obviously said no. Weeks following that, I distanced myself, but I heard he made a list and had access to a gun, so I reported him, and the cops raided his house. Years later, he thanked me for reporting him. Story 14, I told this story before, but basically my ex called it quits because I was blind. That me up good. I have a friend who is a Catholic priest. Well, can I find out a few years ago that he has never molested a prepubescent boy. Totally threw me for a loop, like, geez, you think you know a guy. Story 15, I bought a used car from a friend during college years who was himself a mechanic. The car looked like new. I thought I knew him well enough to take his word that the car was in perfect shape and not needing any money spent on it. Turned out that he used our friendship to unload a vehicle fraught with mechanical woes, including serious transmission repairs, brakes, and electrical issues. Story 16, my best friend through high school, college, for whom I was the best man at his wedding, and whose kids I babysat on more than one occasion, who never did drugs or drink excessively for as long as I can remember, decided one night to get behind the wheel drunk, and with a strange woman nobody in our circle knew, and drove into a ditch. The woman was fine, but he was taken to emergency room, suffered concussions, and later released. He hasn't been the same since 2 years ago now. And a couple of months ago, he got a divorce. I'm not privy to his family's details, but there was definitely some suspicion he might have been dealing with chronic depression, but he hid it really well. Story 17, my dad and his best friend came and visited my family for a week's vacation. I've known my dad's friend for years. Anyway, one night, I am cleaning the kitchen and chatting with a friend, we'll call him Buzz, is in the kitchen chatting with me while I clean. Then he starts talking about how good of a relationship he and I have. Buzz is drunk and high, so I'm not paying that much attention to him. Buzz steps really close to me and asks if he could have a threesome with me and my wife. I start telling him to shut up and stop talking. I know he's drunk and high, so I'm just telling him to shut up. Then he reaches behind me and starts grabbing my while talking about having a three-way with me and wife. I am 62 tall. I play college football in the Pac-10. It was called the Pac-10 when I played and was in the military. I'm a big guy, and these things don't happen to me. Ever Buzz is grabbing handfuls of I raise my left arm and pull back to elbow him in the face, but I stopped, realizing I would have to clean up the blood. I go wake my father up and tell him to get Buzz out of my house right this instant. My dad, same size as me, says, okay. Gets him out and into a hotel, then comes back and asks what happened. I explain the whole thing. My dad is dumbfounded and says, I can't believe I just lost my best friend. I'm so sorry he did this to you. Story 18, after my mom passed away, my dad got remarried in less than a year. Then when my sister was filling out a financial aid for college, she asked if she needed to list him as a widower or remarried, and he dropped the bombshell on us that they weren't technically married despite having a ceremony and everything. They didn't sign the papers to make it legit because it was better for them insurance-wise. Now they always take these expensive trips out of state and out of the country, and she quit her job. So I'm concerned she's just using my dad for his money, and he doesn't realize it because he's still shocked from my mom's death. He never any desire to travel to Vegas or NYC before, and now he seems all too happy to go blow his money there. It's bizarre because his personality did a complete 180. Story 19, I didn't know him well, but I had met him a few times, and he seemed really, really sweet, and he had the prettiest eyes. I didn't expect him to load his car with weapons and ammo and shoot up a military recruitment center, then drive to a Navy reserve and murder 5 people. Story 20, way too late to be seen. But my girlfriend of 2 months directly helped a guy plan to and then kidnap and murder a 13-year-old with full knowledge of what she was doing. Edit, literally Google Virginia Tech murder, and all results that aren't about the shooting will be about this edit too before anyone else asks. No, I was not given any indication that she was a crazy person before this happened. She seemed normal. Story 21, murder, an old lady. I didn't know him, but my friends who played local Aussie rules did. Apparently, he was just some regular kid who roped one of his friends in for this grand idea of murdering an old lady because she lived in a secluded house in a small country town. Story 22 got drunk with my boss at her place like I had many times before. I was close to passing out, and I think I was actually in the middle of falling asleep on the couch where she crawled on top of me and started undoing my pants, mumbled at her to stop, said I wasn't in the mood, thinking she was just going to give me a hand job. She ignored me and started pulling down my pants and boxers, so I put my hands over them and tried to pull them back up. Didn't really get a chance, though, because she grabbed my hands and pinned them above my head. I fought back a little bit, thinking she was just playing around. When she started poking my butthole, though, I got more serious and told her to stop that right now. She brushed me off and kept at it. I said no. She just smiled and said yes back. That's when I really tried to get free, only to realize with horror that I was so drunk my muscles barely worked. At that point, I gave up trying to get free and just begged her to stop. I was actually very surprised when she did. I had already resigned myself to fate. I still debate with myself whether she actually succeeded getting her finger in, but she did eventually stop with this look of, well, if you're going to be a little about it. Story 23. So, one of my best friends recently decided it would be a great idea to drag me into his marital drama. Let's call him Abe. My wife and I are both good friends with him and his wife. She texted me asking if Juno.com was my email address. I replied no, and asked if someone was trying to scam her. Turns out someone created an email address in my name and sent an email to Abe's girlfriend on the side. Turns out his mistress was also married, and her husband discovered their affair. He sent screenshots of this email to Abe's wife, who then sent them to me. The email is written as me, talking about how great a guy Abe is and how much he cares about her, and that I'm holding his divorce fund. All kinds of weird. I never thought one of my best friends would do this. I contacted him about it. He flat out denied the whole thing, but I could hear the guilt in his voice. I'm a very anti-drama type of person, and the fact that he showed such terrible judgment is just so surprising. I told him not to talk to me anymore. If he can't he can't express regret, then I can't forgive. I'm too old to be dealing with this and don't need friends like that. Story 24. Friend of mine for 9 years since college's best friend betrayed him for a girl in college, and I became friends with him. Said he would never do anything like that to anyone. Talked him out of suicide multiple times over the years. Included him in everything. Tried hard to get him a job. Paid for his food. When he couldn't afford it, he never asked me for help at any point, and we always hung out as much as we could, even though it sometimes strained my relationships with women. Trying to have a schedule that I could see everyone in even amount of time. We were best friends. We started going to a local event and met some other people who we became friends with every time we went. My best friend would moan in front of them how they were, and he hated his life and started being outright rude for no reason. So I ended up not going any longer. As did he. I asked him to be my best man. He said no, cut all contact from me, and I tried to find out what I'd done wrong, but he insisted it was all normal. He went away for 2 weeks and said he would let me know when he's back after 4 weeks of no reply. I feared he had killed himself and couldn't get hold of him. Finally did get a reply online, and he said he had a new number and that he had made new friends. I then asked him if he wanted to come to a paintballing event the following week as a last-ditch attempt, but he didn't reply. Blocked me online and never heard from him again. That was 2 years ago. Screw him. Story 25. I was accused of causing about $20,000 of property damage. Didn't do it and told a friend of mine, let's call her Stacy, about it confidentially. 1 day later, most of my other friends knew about it, including my girlfriend, who ended up almost breaking up with me. Thankfully, most people Stacy had told the story aren't shitheads and proceeded to instruct her to off Stacy, and I never spoke again. 3 months later, I was acquitted. The worst part was that she acted all self-righteous about it when I confronted her. Story 26. My husband is kind of no-nonsense guy, or at least more straight-laced than me. He's an engineer and a safety analyst to boot, so he's very conservative about pretty much everything. However, one evening we had friends over, and after dinner, we let our friend take the remote and flip through the channels to find something to watch. As they were flipping through, they paused for a millisecond on a WWE match that had ridiculous costumes like a little person in an alligator suit fighting a man in a bunny suit. My husband exclaimed, "Go back," as soon as our friends passed it, and so they went back and kept it on the WWE match. My husband inched forward on the couch and stared intently at the match, then proceeded to laugh the hardest I've ever seen him laugh to this day at all this silly fighting choreography. I'm talking camp breath, tears streaming down a red face type of laughter. It took us all off guard, but especially me. Since then, we've been married for almost a year now and dated for 2.5. I've come to realize that lots of stupid things that most people would simply chuckle at, he just cracks up at. He also thoroughly enjoys those Dear Kitten commercials by Frisky's cat food. Story 27. A friend stole $200 out of his best friend's wallet. They were like brothers. This was at another friend's wedding. He even helped look for the wallet when it was assumed lost. CCTV was reviewed the next day by the happy couple when they see him clear as they open the wallet, count the cash out, and dump wallet in a bush. They then see him 45 minutes later find, and then re-hide the wallet so it's in clear view, then ushers people to check another area again. Luckily, all was sorted the following day by wives and girlfriends, where he cobbled together a story about trying to stop him wasting his money. Maintained that story till he realized Wed seen CCTV, hasn't apologized, and lost a whole group of friends. Story 28, he was arrested for having loads of child pornography. He and I were always good friends. His girlfriend and I were always good friends. They've both watched my son numerous times. Dustin has 2 kids of his own and always seemed like the most wonderful father. When I got the call from his girlfriend saying that the FBI showed up at their doorstep early that morning, I was at a complete loss for words. To this day, I'm still at a complete loss for words, because while he denied making or distributing CP, he did admit to ejaculating in kids' food or drinks. He never said which kids, but it makes me want to vomit each time I think about the fact that it very well could have been my son, and I simply do not know. Story 29. I thought she was my best friend. She asked me to be the godmother to her son. I said yes. About a month after the birth, we got matching tattoos for him, the baby. About 2 months after the baby was born, a mutual friend had told me that she had slept with the guy I was seeing while she was pregnant with my godson, so 4 months prior. I asked her about it, and she said it was years ago. It was not. He had told me the truth about it. Anyway, she said it was shitty of me to be hurt by it, and that she was sorry. She even asked me to be the godmother. Neat. Story 30. Back in college, my roommate and close friend started dating my ex-girlfriend behind my back within 24 hours of a breakup. 3 girlfriends in a row. He ended up marrying the 3rd after we graduated. Needless to say, it felt very single white female, and we are not friends anymore. The first time it was like, that's silly, dude. Why didn't you tell me? The second time it became weird, and the 3rd time it broke up our entire group of friends and made me feel like I'd been sniffing my underwear the whole time we lived together. Story 31. I befriended a guy in high school because we were the only ones in the entire school who played Black Ops on PS3. Months later, after what I thought was a pretty solid friendship, he accused me of cyberbullying to the school's administration and almost got me kicked out. Story 32. My neighbor seemed to be a normal guy. He had a nice family, a great job. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. One day, we see in our local newspaper that he was caught putting cameras in his bathroom at his office to spy on people peeing. We were in shock. He ended up losing his license to practice, got a divorce, and moved out of the state. He is still being sued by his employees, but since all the tapes were destroyed before he got arrested, he didn't get charged anything severe criminally. We were in shock how this quiet family guy could turn into a predator out of the nowhere. I guess we just didn't see the signs. Story 33. Okay, here we go. Story time. TLDR, a very close friend of 13 years flipped out and decided to demolish our friendship and endanger my livelihood, as well as incur a ton of cost on me. All after me carrying her financially for nearly a year, all for reasons which still remain a mystery to me. I tried to help out a friend and got a swift kick in the nuts for my trouble. I'm going to start by saying that this event happened about a month ago, so it's still pretty raw. So if I sound outraged or angry, it's because I still am. So I had this friend ID known since high school, who had been good friend for 13 years. In the past 2 years, she and I gotten pretty close. Her life hadn't really been great. Home life, bad choices, bad luck, that kind of thing. I noticed at some point that she tended to bounce from guy to guy, moving in with him and staying with him until it inevitably fell apart, and she ended up back at her dad's place until she repeated the cycle. So in an effort to help her break that cycle, my girlfriend and I offered her to rent a house with us. We were looking to move out of our apartment anyway. So we figured 3 good friends living a house together, why not? Well, she had never really been in a very good financial place, had trouble holding down a job. I come to realize that this is all connected to her own personal issues. More on that in a minute. Anyway, I've been pretty well set money-wise, so the idea of having to help her along once in a while was fine with me. I just wanted to help her get her life put back together and back into a more stable place in life. As the months passed, she lost jobs, incurred medical costs, she has Crohn's, and whatever else could possibly with her finances. So she was never able to help with rent or bills. Sometimes she couldn't help pay for food. For a while it was fine with me. Plenty of cash on hand, glad to help one of my best friends. Fast forward to 10 months in this house, and things have gone predictably the same. My girlfriend and I were starting to struggle pretty bad with the financial pressures we didn't expect to be handling on our own, and there didn't seem to be any sign of change. I should point out that we never pressured her for money or harassed her about it or anything like that. She always seemed sincerely upset that she couldn't help with money. One fateful night, we were all about to sit down for dinner when one of her dogs decided to try and sneak food off my plate, which I saw coming and said, "Dog, back off or I'm gonna kick you in your little head." I should mention that that is just the way I talk. I make empty threats, and anyone who knows me knows I wouldn't hurt anyone. or do anything violent, especially to anyone I care about, including their pets. So when she reacted so badly to this offhand comment that on any other night would have been ignored, I wasn't sure what to make of it. I figured she was just having a bad day. So she ran off to her room, and we didn't see her again that night. The next day, I wake up and see that she said something on Facebook about that moment when you realize you don't feel safe at home. I was blown away. For one, I've never made any kind of hostile move or said an unkind word to this girl in all the time I've known her. For two, I work as a consultant. I get vetted by potential clients all the time. There's plenty of evidence online that we live together. This kind of can really damage my reputation and hurt my livelihood. I attempted to figure out what was going on just to get more of the same out-of-nowhere crazy about not feeling safe around me and whatnot. We essentially landed on you don't feel safe at home, and I don't want you to feel unsafe, so you should probably move out, to which she agreed. So we began the process of her leaving. I was at the time hoping that we could remain friends, or at least stay in touch. This was a 13-year friendship we were talking about here. Maybe we simply weren't capable of living together, but we could still be friends, right, wrong? After I thought, finalized everything, I get an email from my landlord asking why she was making accusations of domestic abuse. Apparently, she was under the impression that she could be let out of the lease without any penalty at all if she had to leave due to domestic abuse. Again, I never laid a finger on the girl and never threatened her safety in any way. I know I said I make empty threats, but I don't even joke about hurting my friends. So I had no clue where this was coming from. A thing to know is that in my state, the cops don't ask questions about domestic abuse. If she chose to file a report, they'd arrest me and ask questions later, which goes on my record, regardless if she can prove anything. I told my landlord my side, and he decided that her story seemed fishy, so he decided to inform her of the consequences of making false abuse claims, which includes jail time, I think, as well as him filing a lawsuit against her. Haven't heard from her since. As a result of her leaving, we've had to come to grips with the fact that we simply can't afford to live in this house any longer. We have another 13 months left on the lease, and am nearly broke and have been bleeding money since we moved in. So we get to break our lease and pay a large fee for it, on top of moving and all the costs associated with that. There's obviously always more to a story, and there are details I left out, mostly because it's kind of a complicated situation, and it's hard to convey all the details without an in-depth history of everyone involved. In a nutshell, I lost a very close friend. She may as well have died suddenly, because on that night, the girl I knew and loved ceased to exist. I decided that she's got some definite emotional issues, a kind of inward-facing narcissism. She's the perpetual victim, but tends to cause the issues for herself so that she can play the victim and get sympathy. Apparently, her need to be pitted outweighed her want to stay friends with me. I suppose it's entirely possible that I overestimated the relationship. It's possible that I cared more about her than she did for me, regardless of what the motivations or reasons for any of it. It's shitty. Also, I know this was long, and if you made it to the end to read this, thank you for reading. You were my favorite kind of person. That guy's just tried to eat a sock. I'd say that was pretty high in the ranking. Edit added link. Story 34. My alcoholic Nan gave up alcohol for me, not for her 6 children, but for one of her granddaughters. Nobody expected it. Nobody thought she would ever quit. Yet she did. She died a few years ago now, but she was sober for over a decade. My aunts and uncles still keep pointing out that she gave up alcohol because of me. Story 35. My cousin committed suicide in the 90s because he was gay and didn't think we would accept him. According to his note, I can't imagine what was going on in his head to think that. My other cousin came out 2 years ago, and everyone had open arms for her. Story 36. I have been dating this guy almost for a year. Besides dumb relationship problems, jealousy, talking to exes, etc., everything seemed normal. Him and his daughter lived with his dad in a big 2-story house. His dad worked a lot, made really good money. I would have definitely considered them upper class. So anyway, my ex had full-time job. Ours were always different, but head going almost every day. He would always tell me about his day, things he has to do at work, typical stuff. One day, I get a call from my parents saying they were worried about me. They informed me that they saw my ex, who was supposedly at work at the time, outside standing in the medium of a commonly busy intersection. He had a sign and was begging people for money. I had come to find out he had been doing that for years, never had a job the entire time we were together, and was just lazy. I was shocked at the time. Now that I backtrack, I miss the warning signs.